We are live. We're live. Aloha family. Thank you for watching. Today's episode is brought to you by National Center of Counseling Services and Training. For those of you that have met Dr. Terry Lynn Kim, we had her as a guest twice on our podcast, and she just started this course. I'm going to read this. I don't butcher it, but it's a managing anxiety and stress online course. And so we're excited to offer that to you guys for those of you that want to. It's cool. You can get like these courses on your phone or a computer or whatever devices you've got. And it's something that we were talking about for months, just helping people. There's a lot of stresses we've got, right? Having kids, jobs, business, losing your job, losing money, losing crypto, whatever. But this course that she has, it's a pretty cool course, and we're going to give you guys a promo code as well. And they're going to be launching courses throughout the year, and it's through National Center of Counseling Services and Training. If you go to nationalcentercst.teachable.com, they have the courses there. Our promo code is GLO808, and they will give you 10% off your entire order on that course and whatever courses they offer up in the future as well. So today's kind of special. We've got my wife. She's going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about fighting for your marriage. This is something we've kind of long overdue, yeah? It's been a minute. And so this is our fourth one. We've done 3. The first one we tried it audio only on Twitter, on X Spaces. I feel like it's not a popular topic on a lot of social media platforms, especially when there's a lot of people that are using anonymity, I think that's the right word, on their social profiles. So that can be kind of red flaggy, I would say, for some people that want transparency, and maybe they want to hide certain things in their life. I don't know. But we're going to talk about some of those things. I really don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, but there's a lot. We've got a lot of material. So my wife Emily is going to join us, and if this is good enough, we're going to be able to put it up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As a matter of fact, I'm going to record on my device, so I have audio just in case. So hang tight, guys. We will be back in 47 seconds. Is it 40? I love playing these intro videos, so we'll be back in 47 seconds.
Yo, this beat kicks like Kane on Broken Records, the label. Twins on my side with the slide and the glide. Dove in the back with the scratch and all that. Band my manners and again with send me into a mode where I have to explode with the gospel. Is it possible? Yeah, it's being done. Having fun, praising the true one, God's son. No one sits on the throne. Man, I'm like a dog on his bone. Me and this microphone, so don't try to snatch or I'll violent attack if it comes to that jack. I'm like, create some more. Have them astonished when they walk through the door. FFC. That's a doggone lie we got.
Too much chemistry. No, that song was for you, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, too much chemistry. Too much chemistry. I seen him in 1992, 93. You never heard that song before, yeah?
No.
That's Chris Cooper from SFC. It was a Christian rap group back in the day.
I didn't know you put me on.
Yeah, you're hot. You're hot. I told you.
Coming in hot.
Coming in hot. What were we talking? I did post it on Twitter. I said, if you have to take Farsiga, I'm so sorry.
I was choking on my water. Cole was cracking up laughing. It was only the both of us.
I after
Could not stop
I
laughing.
heard him laughing. I'm like, I should have went out there earlier. I would have gotten the live started
I
earlier.
saw. Did you put that on live, honey?
Honey, you know that's coming.
It was just too funny.
You know it's coming, so it's not a surprise.
I cannot believe that.
Who would agree to take a medication knowing you can get a bacterial infection?
Yeah, serious bacterial infection. That's what it said.
family, for those of you that are like, what are you guys talking about? So there's this ad. So my kids love watching ads. No, I don't take it back. Gideon does not like to watch ads. However, if we force him to watch it, sometimes we get some golden nuggets. And one of these golden nuggets was Farxiga. Is Farxiga?
Farsi.
It's for
I think it's called Farsi.
it's for kidney disease, and I looked it up, and I'm so sorry if you have to take that drug, because those side effects are so horrific. Like one of the side effects is what? Say it again. Intense. What?
Serious bacterial infection between the anus and your genitals.
Like how do they catalog that? Like when they do side effect.
Now, I just took a huge gulp of my water, and they said that, and I was choking on it, trying to swallow it.
I am curious. How do they know it's just that spot? How do they know it's just that spot?
Trials.
But why does it stop? Like,
I don't know if it just stops there, just continues on. I don't. Yeah, some of this stuff is funny.
I'm so sorry for people that got to take that. After I watched that, I'm like, man, I'd rather. I mean, I know it's not a joking matter if you have kidney disease, but I think I'd rather just tough it out. Like, who takes those medications when there's all those side effects? Like the vomiting and diarrhea, I would understand, but the fact that you would get an infection like, very specific between your anus and your genitals, that's horrific.
I have no words. So I can't compute that in my head. They also have the like late at night they have the lawyer ones where if you've been in an accident with an ATV and have died, which cracks me up because
if you're dead.
Yeah. So it makes no sense. Like I don't know if they're just reading from the script just to read from the script, or are they reading through the script and like trying to understand what they're saying, because if you're dead, you cannot sue anybody.
I think from a legal aspect, you could say that you died.
And they brought you back to life.
And they brought you back to life. You could sue them. So maybe that's why they put that in the clause.
Oh. It just sounds so funny.
Yeah, because if you're dead, how can you sue them? But I think from a legal perspective, if you die and they bring you back to life, you can say, you killed me. you can say you killed me. and then it's just so, I mean, that's so funny. We figured it out.
Okay.
We got to get serious.
I don't understand. Yeah, let's get serious. Let's get serious. Serious.
Well, we are a day late. I wanted to do this yesterday, but we had so much fun putting guilt trips on each other. Yeah.
Whatever.
Can I share the story?
Whatever.
Listen, family, my wife and I have been together 26 years. We've been married for 21, actually. So wait, 2004.
21.
It'll be 21 years. Wow. And we've done the whole special, and it shouldn't change, right? It shouldn't. But sometimes you say stuff, and so I told my wife yesterday, and I'll give a paraphrase version. I told her I was going to do something for her on Valentine's Day, and I didn't do it. And she said that triggers me when you say so. In all fairness, I should have done what I said I would do on Valentine's Day, but part of me is like, hey, it's a pagan holiday. It's not that big of a deal. It wasn't about that though, right? It was about the fact that I said I was going to do something and I didn't do it. So, for the men out there that are, whether you're listening on Spotify or whatever, we're going to put this on Spotify. Or you're watching us live. We're only live on X tonight. I wanted to keep it simple. Follow through, right?
Don't make promises to your wife if you're not going to follow through on them.
Well, what does the Bible say about let your
Yes be yes and
no
be
be no?
no.
Otherwise, you'll be a no show. But yeah, I will say, like, after I apologized to my wife, I sent her a very long text because I was driving, and she said, tell them what you said, honey. Tell them what you said.
I accept your apology.
Yeah. So my wife I'm so grateful she accepted my apology.
I think sometimes we don't think that those things mean something. I think sometimes we just flippantly say things and either take for granted that the other person understands or just don't think about it because we're so busy
working or
going through life, being busy, that when we say stuff, we mean it, but we're not quite paying attention to what we just said.
Sometimes we mean what we say, we just don't follow through.
That too.
Like, I did mean what I said yesterday. It just, I wasn't telling you everything I was thinking. Because I would probably say that I thought you would understand the timeline of everything when I said it. Like, it was like already late, but that's part of that is communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're not just assuming you would understand or know all the details of what I was thinking.
Right.
But we've been together so long, I sometimes we just automatically think that you would know.
But it's also triggering, or it can be triggering for those who have always been promised things and they've never come to pass. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is from your spouse, but it could have been something that your parents constantly said and then never followed through.
So how do you overcome that? Because that's a good one. Like, how do you overcome that? Like, because you're bringing that into the marriage.
Mm-hmm. And those are the things you have to settle those things with God. You got to make peace with yourself on both sides.
I think there has to be some grace applied.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
But and so there has to be an understanding on your part as that person, right? So, like I said, as a believer, you deal with those things with God, right? But you also deal with it in physically as well. Like you, sometimes you got to go therapy for some of those things. A lot of it is understanding of where your parents were at that moment and giving yourself grace. Sometimes it takes you becoming the parent to understand sometimes the choices that they made or the things that they did. Not all parents have your best interests at heart. I would say 90% of them do. We'll leave that 10%. Mm-hmm. But that you come to the understanding that sometimes they're busy and sometimes they forget, and sometimes, in the same situation, with your spouse, sometimes they get busy, sometimes they forget, sometimes it's not that it's not important to them, but that there has to be some sort of grace, and there has to be a conversation about it as well, right? Communication is key when you're married, because oftentimes a lot of the miscommunication is the parts that I believe the miscommunication is the things that can lead to divorce or leads to a lot of divorces, because I'm not understanding what you're saying, but I want you to hear me. right? That's where that comes from. I want you to hear me because I want you to hear how what you did caused me pain. But I'm not willing to listen to your side so that I can understand what you're saying to me and get some resolution for a lot of the miscommunication, right? That's on both sides. I'm not necessarily saying you per se,
Yeah,
right?
I know,
I'm
yeah.
just saying as far as being a spouse, right? But so it's important that when you get married, that you understand the portion that you bring into your marriage, and if you have a lot of issues growing up, even not having relationships, if you weren't taught how to have a healthy relationship, or I think we had this discussion of what a healthy view of what love looks like.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that healthy view, then it's hard for you to see your spouse as loving, as kind, as gracious, and it's hard for you to see the love that your spouse really is showing you.
Well, let me read it. So for the grounding for us anyway, at least for us, where is it at? For those that want to cross-reference, scripture reference, 1 Corinthians 13, the famous 1 Corinthians. There's a lot more to it. I'm just going to read the short version of it. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. Love does not brag. It is not arrogant. It does not act disgracefully. It does not seek its own benefit. It is not provoked. Does not keep an account of wrong suffered. It does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. It keeps every confidence. It believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. But if there, actually, I'll skip it. We'll come back to that because there's a long portion to that. But the basic fundamentals of love right there, right, is it doesn't rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices in truth. It believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Yeah. That's our wedding band. Yeah. I will say for people that, and going back to communication, like, I think sometimes we don't want to have healthy, not that we don't want to have healthy, we don't want to approach communication because some of us are not comfortable with confrontation. We don't want to have, we rather just let it, I don't even know the word, like, rather than talk about it. Yeah, rather than talk about it, sometimes we just have this weird perception that if I just let it go, it'll smooth over. Things will, I don't know, things will
somehow get better.
And I'll just, like, you and I are two totally different communicators.
Mm-hmm.
I'm head on, let's not fight about it, although it seems like that sometimes. But I really want to have that conversation, which is so ironic because I'm not that kind of a person as a kid. That's not who I was. But now that I'm older, it's like, hey, no, let's talk about it. But then that doesn't mean I'm a good communicator. That just means I want to approach it head on, and that's not always healthy because sometimes you need space, right?
Well, I think sometimes we can say triggers again, but sometimes, even in the way that I grew up, the triggering thing was for me is when things escalated. I would be in the middle of okay, I'm gonna get lickings for this.
Mm-hmm.
Or not, and it's not like I had a voice or that I could speak out because that's not, that's not how I was raised. And so when we start getting heated and it start getting loud, and then
you talk about your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Well, and then, I never got heated with my parents, obviously, because that wasn't even something. But when I'm talking about when we're having conversations and when we're arguing, I become quiet.
And then that drives me crazy.
And I think for me, part of it is because I could say so many things when I get angry. I'm not saying when I get angry now. But when I would get angry, I would say all kinds of stuff, and you can't take it back, right? You can't take back those words. So instead of saying all the angry, hurtful things because you're hurting me, I would just become quiet.
Do you think that's a crutch, though, now that you're older and wiser? Do you think that can be a crutch to talk?
No, I think
As a mature believer, I'm not talking about the old Am, but like as a mature believer.
as a mature believer, I believe that being quiet is the best thing to do. And then walking away and coming back and having a conversation about it, not where we're so escalated, where we would get violent. You're violent with your words, right? And then you end up saying stuff that really hurts and you can't take it back. You can't take that back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I said something to you so ugly that it hurt you so deeply, I can't take that back.
Mm.
So I'd rather be silent and work through some of the, thought processes or come back to it versus hurting you.
That's only in reference to heated discussions.
Yeah, but the other part of that is processing in the quietness in not a heated conversation. It's trying to process how am I going to say stuff that actually, how can I say what I'm thinking and communicate that well?
Mm.
But also there's fear there, right? Because remember I was saying that how I grew up was very different. So I didn't have a voice. I couldn't speak out. I couldn't say what was on our mind. Like how our kids have conversations with us, right? Or when they upset about something, we have conversations like that. That's not something that ever happened in my household. So now that we're married, right, it's still a learning process for me in how to communicate, how do I communicate that and how do I communicate that well? And doing that without allowing fear to stop me.
Yeah. I think part of me is like, while you're talking, one of the things, I don't know how all men feel, but I know where I am now. Like, part of me feels that I'm responsible for you, right? And even in an argument or a disagreement, like, if I see you go be by yourself, my first thing is like, I guess you say control, right? It's like, no, I need to get to the bottom of this. I need to get to who's she talking to? I'm not saying, but these things coming like, who's she talking to? What is God telling her? No, we're going to do this now. And I'll go and I think that's something I got to work on, is allowing you, like, even myself, like some of the things that I've said, and I got to go back and think, oh man, I probably shouldn't have said it that way. Right? One thing I do know is that my heart and your heart is always in the right place. Mm-hmm. We just may not agree on everything.
We don't agree on everything. And part of my process is always talking to God. I always have a conversation with him because I didn't have healthy conversations a lot, growing up, but a lot of my conversations where I knew that conversation wouldn't hurt me was the conversations that I would have with God.
Now there are some things that are not worth, and we learned about that in the Victor Marx courses, right? Is that there are some things that are just not worth arguing over, yeah, or being nitpicky about. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the things to this day, it still drives me crazy, but it's not worth it anymore, is the wet towels. I cannot stand that. But after a while, I was like, what's the point? Like, it's not a big deal. It really isn't a big deal. It's just one of those things that I cannot. I don't know what it is, but now I can't really smell that great, so it doesn't even bother me anyway. So,
I don't think that's a good thing.
no, it's not. But maybe that was because God's teaching me a lesson. You see, that's what you get. I'll fix your wagon. Yeah.
But the reason why I always have wet towels, and I've always had wet towels, is because of my hair.
No, I know that. It's not an issue. So, but yeah, so some things are just not worth
Fighting over.
And not even fighting over, because it doesn't always start with a fight. Sometimes it's just some things are just not worth nitpicking about.
Yeah.
Like me leaving my socks on the floor. Maybe that's not worth it.
I don't tell you about your socks.
No, well, there's something. Maybe. Yeah. So you have a scripture reference to drop? No, I'll drop a few. We can bring it later if you want to bring it later.
No, I forgot my scripture reference that I was going to use.
Before we get a little bit deeper, for those that are watching or listening, just to give a little foundational groundwork, trying to find some big words here. My wife and I have been together. We've been together a long time, and we've been together longer with each other
than we've been by
ourselves. I know it sounds funny, but I've known my wife longer than she's known herself by herself, if that makes any sense. And the reason why, to me, the reason that's important for me is that I've gotten a chance to know you longer than you've gotten a chance to know just yourself by yourself. Because before you met me, you had all that time to know yourself. But now that you've known me longer,
I knew myself pretty well.
No, but my point is, now we're doing it together.
Yeah.
We should be. And I think all married couples there should be no secrets, including struggles, right? Like whether it's, past relationships, it can be with finances, it can be struggles with pornography, struggles with lust issues or trust, whatever. We should not have anything hidden, right? From including passwords, right?
Yeah. Including passwords.
Including
your phone.
Yeah.
Everything should be an open book.
There should be no reason why your spouse should wonder, I wonder who they're talking to, or I wonder what they're looking at. It should all be like mom and dad, before mom passed. I still remember this to this day. Like, dad could forget his phone or whatever, or mom could, and they go, okay, I'll get it later. Now it's different.
Yeah.
People don't have that level of freedom with their devices. It's like,
but even our kids see that we'll just hand off the phone to each other, like, okay, just here you go, and that should be a normal thing between spouses, right? The other thing is, my parents never had separate bank accounts either.
Yeah.
And somebody had asked me a long time ago, like, what? You don't have we're married. My parents never had separate bank accounts, and that helps to keep you accountable as well, right? To have the same bank account.
There's just way too much opportunity for the enemy to put a wedge between your marriage when that exists. So
there's more open doors for that because of social media, right? And so, I don't care if you go on my Facebook and check it. I don't care if you go on my Instagram or whatever. I don't care. I ain't got nothing to hide. I never did, because I never saw that. And, one of the things that I could never understand, I couldn't understand this. And somebody once had asked me this question, and she was referencing one of our friends' husband, and her own husband was standing there. And she said, and he said, oh yeah, my wife, she has a thing for Mexicans. She used to be married to a Mexican guy. And it said,
and she's married at the time.
Yeah. And she goes, I said, oh yeah, no, this is the couple, right? No, they're talking because she's talking about one of our friends because her ex-husband was Mexican, and she said, "Well," she goes, "Well, isn't he handsome?" And I said, "Well," and I didn't hesitate. I just said, well," I said, "Honestly, I think my husband is handsome. I don't look at a man, any other man in that way, because he's my husband. So if I ever have a chance to look at a man in that light, in that perspective, then why am I married to my husband?" And then I went on to say, I don't get this whole Women Crush Wednesdays, this Man Crush Mondays that I would see all over Facebook, like from my friends and stuff. And somebody had asked me that one time, and I said, my husband is my Man Crush Monday every single day, every single day of the week.
Is there a day?
Including Mondays.
Is there a day of the week that starts with E?
Every day.
Every day.
Because it makes no sense for me to, so this is my perspective, right? So if I have my husband, which I do, right? If I am fantasizing or thinking about another man that I think is handsome, he's great, man, I wish he was my husband. Why am I married to my husband if I wish another man to be my husband? That's a very slippery slope to go down if you're not thinking through the process of all this stuff. Because I don't want to see, I don't want to think about another man in that light, in that perspective, right? The Bible, for believers, the Bible says that you sin even if you have lust in your heart, right?
Committing adultery. Yeah. In your heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Because now you have lust for another person. In the same way, when you have applications and you have friends, and I've unfriended friends that I knew since I was a kid, because some of them just like went off the deep end, and they would get into sexual perversion and all this stuff. I was like, yeah, I get we friends, but I'm not about that life. So I would delete those things. In the same way, I don't have friends that are very provocative in the way that they dress, if their boobs are hanging out, if they're looking for attention in that kind of way. I don't have friends as men who are in the same way. Yeah. In that same light, looking for, a good time, or whatever. And like I said, the whole perverse things coming out of their mouth, then it's unfriending that. And it's not that I'm not trying to not be their friend, but what I am doing is safeguarding my marriage.
Yep.
And that's having that boundary there. You need to have boundaries in everything. If you're attracted to this woman and you see her online, then she shouldn't be your friend. You shouldn't make friends with them.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking a woman is pretty is one thing, but if you're attracted to this woman that you have as a friend, then they shouldn't be your friend, because that's what you need to safeguard your marriage, right?
Let me speak to that, because there are men that I think as men we are. God created us in such a special way where we are protectors and providers, but the enemy can exploit that as well, because whenever you are territorial, you protect your domain, right? The distorted part of that, the perverted side of that, is that you have possessions, right? This is mine. A man's in today's culture, a man's self-worth or their value a lot of times are measured in possessions. And the perverted side of that is that, let's say you and I get into an argument, or maybe you don't like whatever, we could just have disagreement and we just keep fighting, arguing. The easy thing for a guy to do is like, you know what, let me go talk to somebody or have acquaintances that I know that I won't have the same pushback as my wife. I'm not going to cheat on my wife, but you know what? I have quote unquote friends. It's easy for guys to do that, and part of that, and I hate to put it like this because part of it is objectifying women. But if you've got a lot of quote unquote acquaintances or friends, it can be Facebook, whatever social platform, and it doesn't matter. Now you've got in your revolver or in your gun, you got a series of weapons or things that I'm not saying that. Now I'm pretty sure a lot of guys would go the extra mile and commit adultery, but it's easy, and this is women too, not just guys. But I'm speaking as a man. It's easy to have that. That's why when you ask me about who I follow, whatever, and you told me, remember you say, hey, I think it's time for you to start. And I did, right? And I still got to go through because it revolves. And the way social media is now, it's a constant attack.
Yeah.
Right? So I think from a guy's perspective, befriending someone that's on the opposite sex online to where you can have private conversations, that's obviously a super dangerous precedent to having a healthy marriage. So get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right? Clean up your friends list. Right? I made a lot of people unhappy on Twitter last year when I unfollowed 3,000 people. And it wasn't for that, but that was part of it. Mm-hmm. That was, and I guess the question is, how much do I love you? How much do I love my wife? Am I willing to? It's not that big of a deal to have 3,000 followers or 10,000, or to have X amount of friends that are on. It's not that important.
Right.
You are important, right? You should be that. No, you're my wife. Like, I want you, right? Mm-hmm. And I think some guys, and I'm just speaking for the men, if things get hard between you and I, and they do, and they will, the easier thing is to just turn to the side and go find something else. The tougher thing to do is to sit here. No, we're going to sit at this table. We're going to work it out. That's the harder thing to do. The easier thing is to look at things that, or have, relationships with other people, not just women, but with other people, that where I don't even have to deal with the tough stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's to speak to that. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do think that needs to be addressed because we are territorial. We do have, sometimes we get measured by possessions or things that we have, including, relationships with other women, if you will. And I know women have the same thing. Right. And there's nothing, look, I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with having friends of the opposite sex, but if you're married and you truly treasure your spouse, those are areas that I don't think you should walk. You should not walk in those waters. Like, that's just opening yourself up. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a matter of trust. That's part of it. But man, the Bible is very clear. Right? John 10:10. The enemy only comes to steal, kill, and destroy everything in your life. So if you're going to entertain that, you're giving him authority to do so.
Right. Well, and even in the area of counseling, right? Or like you said, talking to somebody else. Like if a man looks to somebody else and they're talking to another woman about their relationship, you're actually putting that person in your relationship, right? You're giving them a voice in your relationship. Now, you need to decide what kind of people do you want in that, right? So for me, because I've always been an intercessor, number one. Number two, I don't like people in my business. That's a big thing for me. I don't care if you're family. I don't care if you're mom. I don't care if you're my sister. I don't care if you're brother. There's only one brother that I talk to and get counsel from, basically. but there are several people that I call if I need prayer, and they are people who I can rely on, people I know who will give me wise counsel. They won't just take my side, but I know that they'll pray and that they cover, my marriage. What I don't want to do is expose my husband and expose him in a way that would either make him feel shame or bring embarrassment to him or my or our marriage, right? I mean, this is some of the things that you don't want to do. If you understand how a man operates, that's the last thing that you want to do, is to bring shame on your husband, and the last thing that you want to do is bring disrespect to your marriage or to him as well, right? And this is as a wife, as a helper, as a helpmate. This, you want to seek wise counsel. That's what the Bible says, right? It says, "Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers." Right? So we're not seeking counseling outside of those who you know that you could trust, and it shouldn't be everybody, right? I got family who everybody has family who gossips, right? And sometimes it's some of the closest people to you. Are those the people that you want to share some of this stuff with? Because if that's what you do, and that's been normalized in your family, well, you wonder why the 50 people in your family knows your whole business, right? And some people are okay with that. I am not okay with everybody being in my business. I'm not wired that way.
As tough as it is, a healthy marriage is always in-house. Mm-hmm. As tough as that sounds, especially in the area of the spouse, of the wife, because the minute you take the husband, the man, out of the picture of caring for his wife, for her needs, and covering her spiritually, emotionally, physically, when you take him out of that picture, that is out of the design of what a marriage was meant to be. I'm not saying that I'm not saying you don't have conversations with people, but the minute you take the husband out of that in the area of counseling the marriage, or you know what I mean, because that's one of the things God holds the man responsible for, is the covering of his wife.
Now, if you need to get counseling, go see a counselor, like somebody who's specialized in marriage counseling, that would be able to give you good counseling. I've talked to my brother my whole life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, that's not, and my brother's not judgmental.
And he's family.
And yeah.
So that's.
And then I have two other people that I call, that I know that I can rely on, and they are non-judgmental, but they are women, first of all. And
godly. And
they're godly.
Yeah.
And so I don't seek another man to give me a man's perspective, except for my brother. Yeah. He's my brother, right? I don't allow something like that to come in, and that's where wisdom comes in, right? We got to use godly wisdom as believers in all this things. And I do want to say that I had a friend, she was a believer, same thing, but she was having problems in her marriage, and she was talking to her coworkers, just the people that are around her. Well, majority of the coworkers that she had been working with were all divorced. So then came in, kind of advice that's geared toward, well, either I hate my husband, my ex-husband, or, it was just a bad divorce, and all these different things. So their perspectives was always that, well, he's always in the wrong, and you should divorce him, and you should do this. And
terrible advice.
And so one of the things I said to her was, who are you getting your advice from? And you need to really look at their life. You're surrounded by majority of divorced women, and these women are bitter. And this is what they're telling you to do. You should go and seek a counselor and get some counseling advice. And then, if you have somebody, that you can talk to in the church that you can trust, ask them to pray for you guys and, seek wise counsel, not that kind of counsel, right? But long story short, she did end up getting a divorce, but she did end up regretting getting a divorce and wish that she had taken some of that advice.
Why do you think so many people are getting divorced?
Miscommunication, misunderstanding, no boundaries when it comes to your parents, culture, right? In our culture, in the culture that I grew up in, right? I have very strong women in my background, right? Both of my grandpas passed away before I was born. And then, my grandma's remarried, and so I didn't know my grandfathers, but the men that they remarried never had a say. And so all the women were very strong women. But, and I watched this over the years. The men don't have a say, and it's different because my dad was very different too. My dad was very alpha. If you got an alpha, that was my dad.
It was an alpha squared.
But people gave my dad respect because if my dad told you he was going to do something, he did it. If somebody was in need and they needed help, he'd be there. If you needed roofing done, he'd be there 6:00 in the morning to help you do your roofing. If you needed a painter, he'll meet you. That was my dad. My dad was always a provider. He was provided. Doesn't mean that he always used wisdom, but
I wish I got a chance to meet him. That would have been special.
But the way my dad did things. My dad led our home, very different. And so from that perspective, I understand that my husband should leave my home. Even in the times where I felt like my husband may have not been doing the things that he should have been doing, I still let him lead.
Which is extremely rare.
I still let him lead.
Just kidding.
But and sometimes people say, well, why you? I say, you know what? Even if my husband lead us into the ground, he's still leading. But I tell you what, I'm going to pray for him that the Lord will help him to lead rightly, right? I cannot see myself taking over that position like how I see my grandparents, my grandmothers, very strong, very opinionated, would do those things, and it was of no benefit, because then I would see, the fighting and all the other stuff, and I never wanted to be controlling in that aspect. I always wanted my husband to lead our family. Not having boundaries, that was an issue. It was an issue with my family. So putting up boundaries is a hard thing. And so for a lot of families as well, when you have a very strong mother on either side, right? And a mother tries to control your relationship and you have no boundaries, then that's a problem. If you have a very strong father on either side and there's no boundaries, then you have a problem. Because I'm not married to my husband's mother. I'm married to my husband. I'm not married to my husband's dad. He's my father-in-law. He's not my husband, right? In the same way, my husband's not married to my mom. He never met my dad. right? So their perspective on everything does not come first. In your marriage, you design the way that you want your marriage to go. You take the good things that you've been raised with, and you apply those things, and all the other stuff, you filter through, and you break off. And then, as a husband and wife, you create your family the way that God designed it to be, right? As a believer, I'm talking about as believers, you create it the way that you guys want your family to be.
I think a lot of marriages, go back to the question of why do you think so many failed? I think a lot of them just give up. They quit. And I'm not saying they necessarily quit on each other per se, because there are some marriages I know that ended up in divorce because one person gave up but the other one didn't. And I think that maybe that happens a lot. I don't know the statistics, but I do know that the last number, 3 out of 5 marriages end up in divorce within the first 5 years. It's probably higher now, but I think part of it is just giving up, like quitting. There's a funny picture, I think we talked about it before, where there's an old man and an old lady in a hospital, right? And they're kind of laughing, but the meme says, remember when we were fighting over that silly little thing? And then the guy goes, no, I don't remember. And they're just both laughing, right? How just going back all those years and but I think people that man, there's so many people that we can probably make a whole page full of people we know that got married, got divorced, family, friends. And it's really sad that people give up, because some of the people that we know that got divorced, we were there when they got married. We know that they loved each other, right? We know they loved each other. But what happened? Outside of the, keeping God in the center of your marriage, all of that, but I think part of it, they gave up. They stopped. I don't know if you remember, Dad told us, he said, no matter what you guys do, or whatever disagreements you guys have, just don't stop talking to each other.
And that's where it begins, to stop talking. You're not listening to me. You're not hearing me. A lot of that is you're not listening to what I'm saying.
I remember Dad was saying, just don't stop talking to each other. Even if you have to argue, at least you're talking. Just don't quit. Don't stop talking to each other. Even if you guys got to argue it out, don't stop talking. The minute you stop talking is when you give up.
Right. And my silence is not because I was stopped talking.
You was talking a lot. Saying a lot of stuff. I just couldn't hear it.
What did you say to me that one night? You said, oh, honey, you have a lot of wisdom. How come I never something before? And I said, it's because you're rebellious.
Is that what
you weren't listening?
Is that what you said?
Yes, something to that effect.
But what was the wisdom remark for? Well, help me refresh my memory. It was.
I forget.
It was about something. Something you did or created. I can't remember what it was. So, outside of quitting, what was the other thing I was going to say?
You stop talking.
Stop talking. But you said it, and this is what I want to talk about, is that even if the man runs the marriage into the ground, or runs the family into the ground, whatever, that's vision. The man has to have vision.
Well, the man has to lead. There's only so far you can go down before you get back up.
Without sounding chauvinistic, people can fact check me, scripture check me, but the head of the home is responsible for the vision of the home, the vision of the marriage. If the man cannot be at a place where he's going to hear from the Lord, that wife better be praying her ears out to make sure that he hears from heaven. right? Because God forbid that I run this family and marriage into the ground just because I'm being bullheaded. If right, the Bible says for a lack of vision, right? My people perish for lack of vision. So I think for guys that don't have that vision, and there's a lot of things that can take us away from having purpose or vision. We talked about social media, that's one thing, but
selfishness, pride.
remember when I had, so for people that don't know, I had the first one was okay, well, let's go way back. So when we first got married, I had an Xbox. I remember I pick you up and you're like, did you go to bed? I'm like, guys, if you're playing video games and you're married, there's nothing wrong with having fun playing video games. But if that is taking time that you can be using elsewhere to be productive, get rid of it.
Yep.
And it's so hard because some of these games are really, we have them on our phones. Can you imagine if we had it on a TV? But and then I remember I had actually I had the PlayStation PS4 in Kailua, and I had to get rid of that because that just wasn't, and I didn't need it. But some of the best games, like there's that game Destiny. I love playing Destiny, and then of course having an Xbox where I had it at home, and then had one at the office, right? Playing at Hope Center. But there's a lot of things that can distract us from having purpose or vision.
Mm-hmm. You waste a lot of time on those things, and your kids are growing up.
Yeah. Tonight was fun. I'm going to share this story. And Gideon was having so much fun.
I saw it.
And he needs that, right? He, like, I said, I think I'm done. And he goes, and I'm like, are you done? He goes, no, I'm not done yet. So I'm like, okay. So I stayed out there with him. And just digging into that snow. Like, he got his knees wet and everything. He was cold. And, like, that's when I knew, like, okay, he needs this.
Well, so...
Like, can you imagine if I stayed in the house and just played a video game? My son's out there having the time of his life in the snow, making an igloo, like,
right? Because he kept asking, "Are you just gonna come outside?" And that's when they said
that's important to him,
right? And you said, "What did you say? Are you gonna go outside?" I said, "Well, he's going outside. You're the one who said it." So,
did you actually walk outside to look at?
I did. Okay. It took me. I have these. I'm double socked.
Double socks.
Double socks. I have double socks on, but I had a hard time trying to get my foot inside my snowshoes because my socks is. I said, you know what? I'm not taking off this socks. So it took me a while, but I got the shoes on, and so me and Zoe went outside, and then Cole came outside afterwards too to go look and then take pictures. So we have a Google Home, right? And the Google Home shows the pictures of the stuff that we take picture of, or the stuff that I take pictures of. So every time we go somewhere, I'm always taking a lot of pictures. I think ever since they were young, I would always take a lot of pictures, right? Because we would go to many different places, right? And those are memories that we can remember and stuff. And now that the kids are older, they see the pictures because the pictures just keep pulling up. So I think Cole asked me to take picture of something that he made. He said, can you take a picture of this? Because I want to see it on the, I said, why do you want to take a picture of that? He said, so I can see it on the Google Home. Because it was something that he made. So the same thing with Guinea. He said, can we take a picture of this thing? Because I want to see it on the Google Home. So Zoe was outside, taking all the pictures. But it was really cool what he built. That was the coolest thing. Looks like a little igloo.
And we're from Hawaii. For people that don't know that we're actually from Hawaii, so we don't have. Well, we do have snow in Hawaii, but not at your house. Like you have to pay for it. But we have snow, obviously in Mauna Kea. But
that's on one island.
Yeah.
And if you don't live on that island, you got to fly to that island.
Yeah, tough luck.
To go up to the mountain, but anyway,
those are all distractions that going back to cell phones, video games, social media. And going back to the original discussion about when we did our first Fight for Your Marriage episode on Twitter, on X, it's not a popular topic.
It's not. I think it's a hard topic, and a lot of people don't like to broach the subject because it can be a very hurtful place. And I think a lot of people walk in hopelessness because they've never been shown how to do things well. I don't think I walk in hopelessness, but it was a challenge for me. A lot of things were a challenge for me because there's a lot of unhealthy things that I saw. Although I wanted to be healthy in our marriage, I wanted our marriage to be healthy. I wanted our kids to be healthy as well. And even in that, it's, really changing the dynamic of the way I grew up. Whether it's culture, whether it's some form of abuse, you have the ability to change the way that you do things, right? Sometimes it's hard to look at yourself introspectively, but you have to look at introspectively your behavior, how you want your children to behave, the things that you want your kids to do. And one of the things the Lord taught me was that, I come from a culture that has a big family. And so, we would share in the helping, I'll say raising, but helping with childcare or whatever, no matter what age you were. If you were in my family, in fact, if you are in my family now, you know how to change diapers, you know how to feed a baby, you know how to bathe a baby. That's just culture. But one of the things that we've always been taught is to let your baby down. Don't pick them up all the time. They always want to carry. And one of the issues, my issues, was that I never felt loved. And one of it was because I wasn't told that I was loved. And I wasn't shown love. And it's not any disrespect to my parents, but the way my parents are raised, things don't change. They changed some things and some things they didn't. And that's just the way that I was raised. So when I had my own kids, and then, you have family and they're like, don't pick them up. No, why is she crying? No, just let them go. Just let them go. And the Lord told me, and this is one of the things that I learned. I said, there's going to come a day when I cannot pick her up anymore. She's going to want to run by herself. So you telling me I can't pick up my kid to love on them? No. Right. And if you're that parent, pick up your kid. You only got 2-3 years before they're not going to want to be in your arms again. You're not going to get to hold them all the time. If they want you to hold them, then hold them. Right. Don't deprive your child because of some sort of cultural belief that you're going to spoil them. That's not. A baby needs that affection. A baby doesn't understand these things, right? When they're that young, they don't understand some of those things. I never spanked my kids up until they were maybe like 3 years old, when they kind of could understand more or less what they're doing. I never spanked them before then, because it doesn't make sense for me to spank a baby who doesn't understand what they're doing. And so those are some of the things that I had to rewire in my brain, that I had to shake off from culture and allow myself to do those things for my own kids. So sometimes we have to lay some of those things down, like spending time, with your kids. If you don't know how to spend time, okay, well, let's go to the playground, have them play, or, do something different that you never had before. It's uncomfortable. You got to do it until you feel that comfortableness, right? So you feel that normalcy, so you feel what should have been healthy for you. And even though it's uncomfortable, well, let's do the healthy thing, right? That's where the renewing of the mind comes in, right? Like how Romans 12:1 talks about, right? Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And if we apply that to our daily lives, like don't be conformed to the culture that you've been taught that is wrong. Be transformed, right? So let's look at what is healthy to do, and let's do that thing until it becomes normal. We want to break some of these generational issues that we have in our families. This is one of the ways to do it. You want to break generational things in your marriage. This is the way to do it, right? And always have a conversation with your spouse about, okay, how are we going to do this? How we're going to parent our kids? I think to one of the other things that leads to divorce is not being complicit. I want to say it like that, but not talking about how we're going to parent. How are we going to parent our kids together? How we're going to do this together? Versus, no, my way is better than your way, and we just can do them like this, right? That is culture.
I think in today's, well, I don't even know what today's culture, but growing up, there's a lot of families where I would see the man wasn't really involved in the, not the rearing, but let's say even in the disciplining of the child. And we've seen many different types, right? And there was one family where I see that the poor mom, she had to do everything, change the diapers, feed the kids, do everything. And all the husband did was work, make money, and provide for the family. And comes home, does his own thing. And the kids are like, want to spend time with dad, but he's either too tired, right? And then the wife is stuck to deal with everything. And I think that depends on where you live too. Like here where we live now, I see a lot of involvement with the men. A lot more than we would see in Hawaii, actually.
Yeah. It was different. And sometimes it was kind of awkward for me, because if I would go out and you would watch the kids, but I have friends whose spouses don't watch their kids, or they can only watch them for a certain amount of hours, which kind of made me feel awkward. Like I felt bad for them, but and it's a cultural thing. And so when I said, oh no, they said, oh, they will say stuff to me. It's like, oh no, my husband will watch my kids. You'll take my kids, they'll watch them. And so, their perspective is very, even in my family, same thing. And it's like, they all look at me like, what? I said, it's his kids too.
And then you come home and the kids never take shower, wash clothes, and all they have was hot dog and rice. Or Simon.
They survived.
But they made us fine. But then, in my defense, that's what I ate growing up. Right, so
I didn't care what they ate. Actually, I wanted one clean house, which is kind of funny, because he said, you know what, you kind of get both. You can get fed kids, and I'm gonna spend time with them, or you can get one clean house. You cannot have them both.
Who said that?
You. That's it. Okay, it's okay. I can clean the house, because I like my house clean a certain way too. So
when did I say that?
This is a while ago. This is when it was small.
Well, yeah, that's. I think that's for any dad. You cannot have a clean house and fed kids and they clean. You gotta pick two out of the three. You gotta have all three.
Where they were clean and fed. And they did have fun.
For the marriages that we talk about kids. The marriages that have kids. We're talking about kids already. What is the toughest challenges in our relationship that involve the kids? I already have a couple scenarios, but what would you say would be some of the tough challenges to make a marriage work having to raise kids?
I remember when the kids were younger and we were arguing, and the argument wasn't so much about the kids, but I think the argument was more of not spending time together. And in my brain, because like I said, culture, right? And this is how I was raised. Like, what are you talking about? It's not about you anymore. It's all about the kids. Because that's how I was raised, where all the attention just completely went to the kids, and then there was no attention.
Well, even you, because there was a time when you felt like I didn't love you like how I should, and I didn't understand that or time. We're talking about time, and I'm like, I didn't. I don't know if you remember, but I didn't quite understand what you were saying or feeling, because to me, it's like I'm never out of your presence or out of you. You're never out of my thoughts. It's like I talked about Bryson. Like, me and Bryson would never say hi to each other. We'd just walk it. Hey, you hungry? Or, we'd just start talking. It was never, hey, good to see you. It was never like that. So I carried that into our marriage in the area of like, when it comes to affection and love, I just assume, we love each. And part of me is like, I don't know if you remember how I said it, but I'm trying to remember how I said it, but I'm like, we always spend time together. Like, everywhere we go, we're together. Not realizing that just because we're together as a family, that doesn't mean that you and I are together.
Yeah.
And now that I think we're communicating a lot better now.
Right.
Like we have needs.
Well, because intimacy isn't always about sex.
No,
right?
Yeah, but it's time.
Intimacy is about time, spending time together, having a conversation, laughing together,
doing podcasts
together, walking on a road, like, looking at stores or whatever, holding hands. Those are the things that the better that we can do these things, the more open conversations that we can have, the more building of trust, and then the more open that you can be. I think for a lot of people, the fear of trusting their spouse is, if I say this, or if I reveal the thing that I've hidden in my heart, or that I struggle with, will they leave me?
Like, if I'm struggling with lust, I should be able to tell you, honey, there's this girl that I should be able to tell you, you know what, hey, we should be at that place. And it's like what I said, you're the only one that has access to me underneath my armor. And I think I was going to say something before you got into that, but what was special? And for anybody that's a believer, this is what I'll say. For what I find special is that when we're worshiping, it can be in church or praying, grabbing your hand while we're worshiping together, that's special. But then there are times where we got to release, because got to have two hands up, right? So, or like even tonight, like I had to release your hand because there's just something God put in my heart to get into posture, and to be in posture that I had to kind of inch forward. And so, but I think it's those little things that matter. Those little hand grabs, and this is funny, but you brushing my hair believe it or not, that's affection. And I know, so for people that don't know, I have long hair. I'm hiding under this beanie. But one of the special moments that, for, and this is not a private detail. I think this is pretty open public, but like, it's special to me. I can do my own hair, but I do legit pull muscles. But I have to do this. I pulled my muscle the other day because I'm just not used to doing it. Yeah. And what else? There's just little things that, and even the text messages, those things are important.
Well, part of my ability as a wife is to encourage my husband's heart, right? Not tear him down, not be critical, not do damage in that way, and not realizing that, right? I can be very critical. I want to say that's my mom is very critical. That's what I was shown growing up. So to be on that end, I can be that. But it's, as you get older, you begin to see things differently, right? And you see a perspective that is like, okay, that's not healthy. I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't, I shouldn't talk down to my husband, nor should I be condescending, nor should I it's one thing to be thankful for another man, doing certain things like helping, I don't know, can be helping dump rubbish or whatever, or helping, me do certain things. But it's another thing to always gratify them above my husband all the time. And if that's what I'm doing, it doesn't tell my husband that I love him.
It doesn't say that he's number one.
What it's saying is, if I'm constantly putting that out there, that doesn't give my husband the confidence in our marriage that he would need, or a confidence as being the husband or the head of the home, or even in just being the man, right? If you know that your husband have shortcomings, right? I'm speaking to wives now. If you know that your husband have shortcomings, you don't have to nitpick at it, and you don't have to be critical about it. I'm pretty sure they know those things. So what would I do? I'll just encourage my husband. I have a good husband, my husband is full of wisdom. He is full of wisdom.
Mighty. But also don't make it public. Like if there's any shortcoming, keep those things in house. Mm-hmm. It's nobody's business. Mm-hmm. Even if it's I would just say, on err on the side of caution, like, don't expose anything that needs improvement. Now, if your spouse does it publicly on whatever, gonna be a social platform, whatever, that's one thing. But to highlight it as a shortcoming or a flaw, I think you would have issue if I always highlighted how some female friend or acquaintance was so good at doing this, and I'm sure I've done that before, and maybe you have felt like, wow, he's praising this woman in public. He never praised me. I'm sure you felt that a few times, right? Because that's just something I naturally, and I don't just do, I don't just praise women. I praise women or men publicly if it's something that warrants, or just to bless them. But I also have to use wisdom and caution, discretion as well, mm-hmm. and discernment, that I don't do it to a point where wait a minute, am I praising my wife just as much or more? If not, then mm-hmm. something needs to change.
I believe that your spouse should always be in your conversation, right? So, me and my spouse do this together, even in conversations outside, if in a phone call, or even in the presence of somebody else, Just don't put yourself in that position, or walk away from that position, right? Don't ever leave yourself vulnerable in those situations where, you know, the appearance of what it is, it would lead you down that road. Not necessarily you going down that road, but what it appears to be, what it would appear to your spouse, what it would appear to somebody that knows your spouse, what it appear to your family, what it would appear to your friends, right? You want to have some self-respect.
Yeah.
It's not just about respecting your spouse, but having self-respect, respecting yourself enough to know, like, no, I'm not gonna put myself in this situation. No, I'm not gonna do that. No, I'm not gonna, do this. Know yourself well enough to know that if I walk over here and that's a temptation for me, then maybe I shouldn't be walking there, right? If you have a problem with alcohol, then and you're trying to stay away from alcohol, why would you walk in a bar?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, just using wisdom and some of these places that will safeguard your marriage, right? Safeguarding your marriage, safeguarding your spouse, safeguarding your children. Sorry, I want peanut butter leaking over the place.
We do gotta talk about Jezebels, and I think this would be a good 15-minute discussion. For people that don't know, how would you describe a modern day Jezebel? Give us a description of a modern day Jezebel.
A modern day Jezebel. Somebody who slides into your DMs when they know that you're married. They say, hey, how you doing? You can be a friend. Can be somebody that you knew from before. Can be the prodding.
What do you mean prodding?
Hi, how you doing? Just checking to see how you doing. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was looking at your Facebook and I saw that you guys were having a hard time.
Yeah, that's a major Jezebel comment. I saw you guys having a hard time. Okay.
Right. That's why it's not good for you to put all your business out there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What else is a modern day Jezebel? Provocative dressing.
Yeah.
Part of that is, I feel, is insecurity in who you are. So you want validation from somebody else.
I think that's why it's so important to always, for the men, I'll speak for the men, like, love your wives. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii would say, no be shame. Well, why are you shameful? That's your wife.
Right?
If you're shamed, that means you're hiding something. You're hiding on a flaw, not of hers, but something in you that you... I always have this, and this may offend people if they actually listen to this, but there's red flags when I see people on social media that never show their spouse or never even talk about their spouse.
Yeah.
I get the idea of protecting, like, I'll use Joe Rogan as a good example. He never posts anything about his wife or daughters. See, for him, that's different because he is someone that he's an extremely wealthy celebrity now. And people could use that and leverage that against him in a very evil way. They really could. So that I understand. But then when I see people that are on social media and make no mention that they have a spouse, that's a red flag for me. It really is. It's like, why are you not? And then you're having conversations with people on the opposite sex. That's a red flag.
Yep.
And I will say to the men, if you're doing that and you are married, I would encourage you to stop doing that.
Right.
because that does create a wedge. Whether you're doing it on purpose, I don't know. I hope not, but that is a red flag when I see people that are heavy on social media and make no reference that they're married. That's a problem.
It is.
On both sides. But I'm speaking to the men.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to post pictures or videos of yourself on social media, and then you have no reference that you have a wife or even a family, that just gives the enemy an open door.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some etiquette things that I won't do on social media anymore. At least I don't think I ever will. Unless you say, hey, honey, I think you should do... Like, I won't post pictures of me, like, shirtless anymore because I'm too sexy to show. Quite the opposite. But, you know what I mean? That's for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's a closed men's group where we're all trying to motivate each other and we do, like...
bodybuilding or...
Before and after them, I think that would be different. But that'd have to be very specific. Yeah. But... there are some, I want to go back to there are some things that are distractions or things that take away from our vision and our purpose as men in our marriages. As much as I can't stand the guy, because he is kind of a bad person, I think, is Tate. What's his name?
Oh, Andrew
Tate.
Andrew Tate.
He's got some terrible things, but there's some things that he says. If you just take those things and take it out of everything else he says, one of the things he says is that if you're a man and you're consuming, I'll use pornography. If you're consuming pornography, he says you're probably broke. And you probably play video games too. As harsh as that sounds, he's kind of accurate on that. Guys that do, and I'm not just saying pornography and video, but that's just the two extremes of that. If you're consuming a lot of things like that, chances are you're probably broke, and or you don't have purpose. And he said that I am too busy, and this is where the prideful, chauvinistic, I'm too busy making millions of dollars to be doing stuff that has no purpose in my life. And so there's a lot of things that, as men, that detract from our purpose or vision in our marriages. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is spending time with each other.
Pursuing each other.
Pursuing. I like that. Pursuing is better. Pursuing each other.
Right. Because there is purpose in your marriage. And there is something to fight for. And there's a reason why you got married. So fight for it to stay together. Because everything else around you fights against it. Right? You look at the culture, you look at the world and what they're saying. I'm not saying specifically people, but you look at what the world is saying right now, right? Fight for your marriage, fight to stay together, right? Fight to communicate well. You know, if you have an internal struggle, you're going to have to fight for you to get better at whatever it is, communicating. Let me communicate my struggles. I want to be honest with you. You know, I want to come forward with, I don't know, whatever it is, you know. Pursue your spouse. Have purpose in that, right? You should be pursuing your spouse no matter what.
Yeah. At
all times. You know, don't think because, oh, this is my wife and that's what she should be doing, that she should be changing all the diapers, wiping all the butts, like wiping all the diarrhea, feeding them all the time, or changing their clothes all the time and being the only one who's taking them to school, who's playing with them, who's spending time with them. It doesn't work that way. If you want to produce healthy children, fathers need to be stable in their marriage, right? Fathers need to be stable. And who cares if you don't know how to do it? because you didn't have a father there.
Do it.
Do it.
Just do it.
Do something healthy.
Yeah.
Let's spend time together. Let's read a book together. Let's go jogging together. Let's go walking together. Do something different. Who cares if it's challenging for you, if it's hard? Do the hard thing, because the hard thing will become a better thing that would change and shape the new reality of who you are. Not just to make you a better person, but also it'll shape the reality of your children. I mean, there are things that we do with our kids that we didn't have. We sit down and we have conversations with our kids, right? We talk about different things. We talk about the things that they struggle with, right? We sit and we hash it out together.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that growing up. Sometimes, I'll just go lie down next to my daughter and talk to her. and we would spend time together that way. That's not something that I had, but that's something different that that I'm doing, that I'm learning to do, in having healthy conversations with our sons, or my husband spending time with our sons, and I go spend time with my daughter, or my husband will spend time with our daughter and I'll go spend time with our boys. And, it's showing them, what a healthy relationship should look like. What kind of spouse do you want your child to marry? Whether it's a boy or it's a girl. If you're a mother, show your son the kind of wife that you would like for him to marry. If you're a father, to your daughter, show your daughter the kind of men that you want your daughter to marry, right? You don't just you spend time with your children, but you also display that with your spouse, right? My husband always kisses me goodbye before he leaves, right? And that's a normal thing that our kids see all the time. Like, display affection for your spouse, not in an unhealthy manner, but in a healthy manner, so that your children can see what healthy looks like, right? Even if you're fight for that marriage. Show your kids this is how it is. It has nothing to do with you. We're learning. This is a learning curve that we got to get over. But let's do it this way. And like I said, this is not something that I've been taught. Let's say we've been taught, because my husband comes from a healthy family, that I've been taught. And this is all the learning of those things, right? I am a child of an alcoholic. So all this new things that I've learned over the years, I'm still constantly learning. I'm still learning how to love my husband well. I'm still learning how to have conversations with my husband well. I'm still learning. Sometimes I hurt his feelings, or I say things that he's like, wow, that's rude.
To be fair, so I may have had a healthy home structure, but the enemy doesn't exploit where we're the strongest, right? So even though your family structure was different,
I'm saying unhealthy in the part of what a healthy marriage will look like, as far as...
But that's my point exactly, because even though I had that had no benefit for me in our marriage whatsoever, as far as I'm concerned. Those are things that I had to, although I may have had an example, I'm
not saying that you didn't have things that you needed to overcome.
Yeah.
I'm saying vision is two different things.
So I'm talking about scripturally speaking, that's something that I had to go and actually, even though I may have had a model for me, I'll just read it. Ephesians 5, it just says that husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. In verse 25 or 28, it says that husbands also ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. And he who loves his own wife loves himself. And I think that's where the model of loving my wife, that's where it really comes from. And I love my dad. I love, what he and my mom. But there are some things that had no benefit to me in us becoming a healthy couple, married couple. I'm not saying he didn't give me anything, because that would be very unfair to say, but it really, however, like, getting scripturally grounded is where it's at for both of us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we definitely got to do a part 5, part 6. And I think there's one of the things I think I want to get into, not tonight, but intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll cover another topic on the next one. But I think that's good for today. You want to drop something before I do our closing?
Yeah.
While she's pulling it up, I just want to say thank you for anybody that actually sat through. I shared this out on Twitter on multiple communities, so I just want to thank for anybody that took the time to just sit down and listen to us talk. This is something I want to do more of, but we try to fit it in and squeeze it where we can. I do eventually want to do something like this organically in person. It's just something I would love to, and obviously have. We were supposed to have done one in Honolulu last year. Yeah, last year, but we didn't for conflict, I think, of schedules and for financial reasons. We weren't able to fulfill that, but that was something we were planning to do with Pastor Rachel, Pastor Jared in Honolulu, was to do a marriage conference. So pray that we can make that happen in some capacity. And but I want to say thank you for anybody that hung out with us, and we hope that there are some gold nuggets for some of you guys. We're not marriage counselors, but we do counsel married couples. So we can put it that way. I'll drop my scripture after you get yours.
Okay, I got Proverbs 5. This is a warning against adultery. Proverbs 5 verses 15. I think it says 15 to 20. It says, drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams of water in the public square? Let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. Why be captivated, my son, by an adulteress? Why embrace the bosom of another man's wife? For a man's ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all his paths.
I won't read the scripture I was going to read, but I will say that after you read that, for those that subscribe to the Bible, when you read how when you look at how man was created, right? God created man out of the earth, out of dust, and he breathed life into the man. And then when he created the woman, he took the woman out of the man. And you look at the scripture and how he didn't carve in part of the head. He took a rib. He didn't use the feet. I've used this analogy. I forget where I heard it from, but he didn't use the skull because he didn't create the woman to lord over the man. He didn't use a foot bone so that she would be under the man, but by using a rib that literally side by side, and that she was made of his flesh, that they are always going to be one, that they were So for anybody that is going through a struggle, and this is a good landing spot, yeah.
Yeah, you want to take me off? You can.
So for anybody that I'm gonna close this out, and then we'll play our fancy music. But so if anybody's struggling in your marriage, I just want to encourage you. First of all, God loves you. No matter what struggle you're going through, no matter how tough you think it is. One, God loves you, and He wants the best for you. He wants the best for your marriage. He wants the best for you and your spouse. And if you're struggling to go to a place where you're willing to be humble enough to have those discussions, I would encourage you to seek His face and say, Lord, is there something that I need to work on to humble myself in this area? Because I promise you, if you're willing to do those things, that He will open the doors necessary to have for you to have success in your marriage. And so, with that being said, I will put all the resource links in the liner notes, I think we call it. So on my Spotify audience, I'll put everything in the course description, the podcast description. For Dr. Terry Lynn Kim, she does counseling as well. And so for anybody that maybe you're in a dark place, I just want to invite you to just reach out to us. And we would love to just connect your resources. Obviously, we'll pray with you. We'll pray for you. So this is Glow Sessions. This is our podcast. This is our Fight for Your Marriage series. We do these kind of in between, far few and in between of the regular podcast. But we're going to do another one. We're going to cover intimacy. And so I just want to say thank you guys for giving us your time. And we appreciate each and every one of you. So we're going to close this out. It is this is a late taping for us. This is 1 a.m. in our time. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your hearts, for those of you that tap the screen, all the good stuff. But most importantly, thank you for your time. And we hope that the exchange of your time for this, it was worth it. And so on behalf of my wife, and myself, we love you guys. God bless you guys. Hui ho, aloha and mahalo. Yes, sir. Jihu.
Yo, beat kicks like Kano, broken records, the label, twins on my side with the slide and the glide, dove in the back with the scratch and all that. Band my manners and again which sends me into a mode where I have to explode with the gospel. Is it possible? Yeah, it's being done. Having fun, praising the true one, God's son. No one that sits on the throne. Man, I'm like a dog on his bone. Me and this microphone, so don't try to snatch her off. I'll attack if it comes to that jack. I'm like, to create some more. Have them astonished when they walk through the door.